Assalamu alaikum. Me, Burhana Islam, a super storyteller, originally from Bangladesh, grew up in Newcastle and now lives near Manchester. She loves to tell stories about heritage, belonging, identity and faith. Burhana studied English literature and then became a teacher, sharing her passion for stories with kids just like you. Her first book, Mayhem Mission, won some really cool awards, like the Tower Hamlets Book Award and the Fantastic Book Award. She's also written some other awesome books, like the Dastardly Duo and the Big Breakout. Plus, she wrote a book called Amazing Muslims Who Changed the World, which is all about incredible people making a difference. Get ready to be inspired by her amazing stories.
Assalamu alaikum. Perfect. Well, I'm actually really excited to be here because I have heard that people have come from all across the country. Is that correct? Oh my gosh, mashallah. I heard some people are here from Scotland. Hands up if you're from Scotland. We've got a few people from Scotland. Hands up if you're from London. Just a few people from London. Hands up if you're from Nottingham. Oh, we got a lot of people from Nottingham. Lovely. Hands down. Well, I have heard that there are some inspiring storytellers in this room. Am I correct? Who here wants to be a writer? Who here wants to... Oh, we got a few little writers here. Who here loves reading stories? Everybody here should be putting their hand up. Everybody put your hand up. Hands down. Well, what I want to do today is I want to introduce you to a world of stories where we can have a laugh and where we can be funny. But I want to know first, why do we need to have a laugh now and again? Why is it important? Hands up, please. Why is it important that we have a laugh now and again? Lovely. Laughing gives you joy. It definitely gives you a warm feeling inside yourself. It gives you joy. Lovely. Jazakallah khairan for that response. It actually, eyes this way. Shh. I can't hear what people are saying because my daughter is crying. But yeah, it helps your well-being, and that's something that you have to look after, your mental health as well. One more response. Why is it important that we all have a laugh now and again? Why is it important? Got a lovely hand here. And that was a lovely response, that we do need a little bit of joy in our lives. Hopefully, I'm going to get this PowerPoint working. There we go. So, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me because I've got a quiz. I've heard you've been really good with quizzes. So I've got a quiz. But a little bit about me. I was actually born in Bangladesh. Hands up if anyone's here from Bangladesh. Got a few Bengalis. I was raised in Newcastle. So not quite Scotland, but Newcastle. I'm a lover of books. Hands up if you're a lover of books. Hands down. I'm a lover of chocolate brownies. Hands up if you're a lover of chocolate brownies. Hands down. And I'm also a lover of samosas, but you know what? A lot of people have got their hands up. But you have to put your hand up if it's the flour samosa, not the spring roll, but you know the flour moida samosa where it's nice and soft. Got much more hands up. Lovely. I'm also a teacher, so if you ever hear me put my teacher voice on excuse me, that's my teacher voice. So if you ever hear me do my teacher voice, that's because I may have got a little bit angry, but that rarely happens. Actually, it happens quite a lot. I work with secondary school students, that's why. And I'm also a library lurker, so you used to find me in the corner of every library, and I'd have my head buried inside of a book. And a lot of my journey started in there, in libraries. But if you love chaos, and Diary of a Wimpy Kid and Mayhem, I've written the Mayhem Mission series, which is a Dastardly Duo on the Big Breakout. Has anyone ever heard of Ali Official? Or are you too young? Got a few people. Well, I really loved Ali Official when I was your age. So he's actually done the audio books. And I'm also the author of Amazing Muslims Who Changed the World, which hopefully we'll hear a little bit about. Okay, so today is all about writing funny fiction. Can I ask, this is really important, by the way. This part is super important. What is the difference between laughing at someone and laughing with someone? Because this bit is extra important. I'm going to go to the back because there's a few hands up at the back and I don't want to miss everyone. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So, somebody there put it really well. I could not have put it better myself. When you're laughing at someone, it's more like bullying. They're not laughing with you, you're making them upset. But if you laugh with someone, you're sharing that laughter, you're sharing that joy. And that's what we've got to remember. You know, when you're writing, because everyone here can be an inspiring storyteller, but when you're writing, and you're writing funny fiction, because I'll be setting you a challenge, especially the boys, because I feel like the girls are quite good when it comes to writing, and the boys are always like off in a cloud. He's like, absolutely not. He's already writing his story. MashaAllah, tabarakallah, Allahumma barik. He's already writing. So he's put me in my place. But definitely, I'm going to give you a list of tips to make your survival guide to write funny fiction, and we need to make sure that we're laughing with and not at. We also see laughter as a medicine. Hands up if when you had a really bad day, your brother, your sister, your grown-up, your guardian, what happens, how do you feel when they've made you laugh and you've had a really bad day? What does that do? I'll come to you because I feel like I insulted you. Go on. Yeah, it does. It makes you feel better. It makes your day. It makes you feel a little bit warm inside. Love that. Thank you. Yeah. Excellent. It takes your mind off things. There's a lot going on in the world, right? We scroll on social media. We see from friends and family. We're at school, and it's quite heavy, you know? The ummah is hurting, but sometimes when you have a laugh now and then, it's a little bit of a medicine. But let's get straight into it. Let's find out how to write funny fiction. So your guide to being funny, if you were watching a film, or if you were reading a story, or what is it that makes something funny? So I'm going to give you about 20 seconds. How do you make someone laugh? What makes you laugh? How can you be funny? Like how? 10 seconds with your partners. Go on. How do you make someone laugh? Go on. What have you got? Okay, so tone. Agreed. Go on, sit down. I don't want to. What? A bumblebee. Oh, okay. We've got a few already.
I think it's on. I'm changing it.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Okay. Eyes this way, please. In 3, 2, 1. I can see people sitting up smartly and with their hands up. 1 second. Right, okay, we have someone very eager. Go on. Yeah. Exactly. Acting funny, it's your behavior. It's your behavior that makes somebody laugh. So that's one thing. Girls? showing them a funny video. So that goes back to action. So you know, I actually did this with my year 13s and they were not as fast as this. Somebody over there said a joke, so that's one thing. Yeah. Sorry? Make a joke, yeah. Yeah, and your company. So that's a few, so being with the company that you keep. Right. So I've got some of these already. So I've got jokes, tickling or pranks, what people say, silly accidents. Somebody said memes and wordplay. So I recently read a book by somebody in this room, and they've said, oh, that's Thor's son. But actually it was, that's awesome. So that's a play on words and sounds. So, shh. Eyes this way, please. Can I have everybody sitting down? Can you find your bottom on a seat, please? Quick, quick, quick. Right. Shh. Oh, I think this is on. Yep, it's on. Right. What I'm going to do you want to get your bottom on a seat, love? Sit down. What I'm going to do, has it gone off again? I think so. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to read a little bit from my story, The Big Breakout. And this is actually about 10-year-old Yusuf Ali Khan, and he's at a school. And the school was actually a school that I used to work at. But what I want you to do is I want you to think of ways this is funny, right? So think of the things that we have used. Shh. Right. Shall I start reading? Yeah, we've got some people waiting very patiently. Right. This, my special friends, I announced grandly to Inspector number 1 and number 2. So there are inspectors in school, and you know when there are inspectors in school, you know that they're looking at your behavior. So he's at school showing these people around. This, my special friends, I announced grandly to Inspector number 1 and number 2. This is the biome. At that very moment, I was no longer Yusuf Ali Khan, the form captain of Form B. As hard as it was to believe, within mere minutes of leaving the classroom, I had transformed into a milk chocolate version of Willy Wonka, and this dome of greenery was my wonderland. Behold, the school's greatest secret hideaway project. I waved my hands for dramatic effect, but nobody seemed impressed. Tough crowd. Useless? I don't think, the lady inspector began. It's Yusuf, I corrected her. I really hated the stupid autocorrect on that stupid sticker the head teacher made me wear. She could have at least double-checked the spelling of my name before printing it. Yusuf and useless had absolutely nothing in common. Ah, sorry, she said, with not an ounce of sorry inside her. Is this place usually so accessible? She flicked her brown hair behind her ear. I deceptively peeled the sticker off my jumper and nodded. It's usually locked, but there are 3 secret passageways. I tried to peer at her clipboard, but it was practically stuffed up her nose for safekeeping. Gross. You can use the air vent up there. I pointed towards the loose board on the ceiling. But nobody's used that since the year 1 kid got stuck in there, and the caretaker had to poke her out before she hyperventilated. Has anyone seen any of the tricks I've used so far? Sorry, I can't move away from the mic. Has anyone seen any of the strategies that I used so far? Any jokes? Something silly? Description? Exaggeration? Yep, we've got a few. What have we used? What have we used? Yes. Yeah. To make them stand out, yeah. Right. Excuse me, the man inspector said suddenly. Don't worry, it didn't happen again that year, and it only happened 3 times since. I scratched my head, thinking about the other routes. Miss Minchell sometimes leaves it open when she's in a rush, so that's another way in. There was one time when Chompy, the school's chameleon, he's over there. I pointed to his little evergreen glass habitat. Well, he escaped, and somebody hit the fire alarm because it was the only way for him to search secretly without terrifying him with hordes of little humans. Miss Minchell made us pinky swear not to tell anyone, but it was plastered all over the 5 Bay Times. Before break had even started, it didn't help that it was a fireman who found Chompy sunbathing on the school roof. I smiled at the thought. Such good memories. Inspector number 2's jaw was wide open, and there was one more entrance. You said 3, right? Yes, there is, but you don't want to know about that one. It involves the girls' toilets, the masked trickster, and a whole wad of toilet roll. The lady inspector went pale, like she was going to vomit. The masked what? Holy snotballs! I raised my hand to stop her in her speaking tracks and almost stumbled over myself. History is repeating itself. I repeat, history is repeating itself. The inspectors jumped to the sound of my alarm and huddled to near the door like they were being held hostage. I rushed over to the tank where Chompy should have been lazing peacefully, only to find out that the lid was open and the lair was empty. There was no doubt about it. There was a hungry chameleon on the loose. Don't move, I whispered to Inspector number 2. Not another millimeter. I crept my way towards them. Both inspectors were breathing heavily, taking my word as law, as they should, being Form Hampton had its benefits. Where is it? The man inspector said, his bottom lip quivering. He clung onto his blazer like a life jacket. Now was definitely a bad time to tell him that Chompy was crawling stealthily up his shoulder. I tried my best not to glare into his deep, beady eyes. Chompy, not the inspector. If I gave him the "I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed" look, he would have probably have bolted and would have no choice to raise the alarm. The lady inspector was a bit braver, snapping into investigation mode immediately. Is there any particular reason why he's called Chompy? Why would a chameleon be called Chompy? He eats a lot. He could be biting, yeah. He could chomp a lot, yeah. She didn't realize that the chomp meister himself was behind her. I took a deep breath and began. There was one time but she looked like she changed her mind. You know what? Don't tell me. She shuddered at the thought, but it looked like some truths were meant to stay buried. The only slight problem was that the grown-ups were like lanky trees compared to me, and somehow I had to get them to the floor. Luckily, quick thinking was an underused superpower of mine. I think now is the perfect time to fall to our knees and pray, I said sensibly, taking their sleeves and guiding them to the floor. Please let this work, Ya Rab, please let this work. This must have been so weirded out by that they followed my instructions without question. Simply wasn't possible to tell you what it was like to wield that kind of power. Here, these super spies were taking orders from Yusuf Ali Khan. If that wasn't uncle material, God knew what was. But the worst possible thing happened at that very moment. The lady inspector shrieked from the top of her lungs and caught sight of Chompy's tongue stretching for her earring. My very own heart leapt as Chompy lost his balance, and then it was chaos. Chompy bolted left, the man darted right, and the lady tripped backwards into the mini forest of plants. Everybody needs to calm down right now, I screamed. tailing after the chameleon with all the life I had left in me. With no inhaler to hand and my oxygen levels beginning to borderline flatline, I dove into the spider plants and just about caught Chompy by his tail. Cradling the chameleon in my arms, I emerged from the jungle of tangled leaves. There was mud all over the place, compost scattered all over the floor, and the plants that didn't make it were sprawled on the floor. Still, Mrs. Headley, the school's formidable Miss Trunchbull in the making, was at the door, glaring angrily. Gulp. Okay. So, your guide to being funny. I'm going to take the inspiration that you gave me, and it said, being silly. I heard a joke over there about a bumblebee, I think somebody said. But I also got another one. So why did 7 eat 9? Sorry, why was 6 scared of 7? Sorry? That's why 6 was afraid of 7? Because 7, 8, like the Chomp Master himself, 7, 8, 9. And yeah, 7, 8, 9. 8 is a homophone, you eat. I can see someone try to explain it. But yeah, so these are the things. I don't know, jokes are a really big part of writing fiction, comedy fiction, so that's one. I also had another one. What do you call a Frenchman in sandals? Philippe Flop. Got a couple of laughs there. Anyway, that's how you can do it. So your challenge is using the checklist. You should write your own funny fiction. It's actually just checking things up. Because you don't know, because when I was little, I was in your space. I used to go to the library, grab my books. I'd be him in the corner, writing my book already. While there's speakers in the room, they're like, I've got my story. I'd be that person there. And when my dad used to take us to the library, I'd look at all of the books. I'd be like her, writing away, scribbling away in my book. If somebody would be talking, I'll be like, no, I'm going to write my story. But you don't know if your story is going to be shared. But I heard everyone. In fact, somebody was talking about Al-Aqsa and Palestine. And one of the things I end my session with is this story. And not quite Mayhem Mission, it's from Amazing Muslims Who Changed the World. But can I have everybody's extra special attention, please? Extra special attention. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the reason why I've asked for extra special attention is because this story is a story that's really close to me. Somebody said before that Al-Aqsa belongs to the Muslims and it belongs to all of us. But I just want to take a story from Amazing Muslims Who Changed the World and tell you about Salah ud-Din, the keeper of the caves in Jerusalem. Put your hand up if you heard of Salah ud-Din. Hands up if you heard of Salah ud-Din. Oh, yeah, a few people. Hands down. So, shh. Hands down. Shh, shh, shh. Boys, in the old city of Tikrit, along the banks of the Tigris River, there lived the brave son of a Kurdish chieftain. His name was Salah ud-Din, and he would become one of the most courageous warriors the world had ever seen. It was the 12th century, and children grew up fast. Surrounded by rulers and politics, Salah ud-Din quickly became interested in government. By his 15th birthday, he had finished his studies in science, mathematics, and law, and entered into military service. There he trained with his uncle, Asad ad-Din Shirkuh, under the great leader Nur ad-Din. In a few short years, Salah ud-Din showed his fellow comrades and generals what he was truly made out of on the battlefield. It didn't take long for his commanders to notice his skilled swordsmanship and wide decision-making. He was known for his honor, his fairness and chivalry too. These were rare qualities. Soon the humble soldier rose to the ranks of a respected general and became the leader of the army after his uncle's death. When the Sultan passed away, he left his empire to his 11-year-old son, Saleh. But the new government was weak, and the old enemies of the state were stirring. They were desperate to weaken Saleh's kingdom and seize the opportunity to take it from him. Before the old Sultan died, Nur ad-Din's final wish was to unite the Muslim world. But with Saleh in charge and battles ensuing in every turn, it was only a matter of time until the empire fell. It was then that Salah ad-Din raised his army and fought hard to claim the throne. He charged into battle, gaining the respect of his people, and became the warrior who would in time unite the Muslim world. As the new leader, Salah ad-Din seized control of the Muslim empire, reigning over Syria, Egypt, and the vast lands in between. Then he has his eyes set on the Holy Land of Jerusalem, which would be one of his most dangerous conquests yet. The city had been fought over for hundreds of years and was currently in control by the Christian crusaders of Europe. Salah ad-Din needed a plan to restore it and secure it. After weeks of strategizing, the general set a trap for his enemy. Salah ad-Din and his soldiers attacked the old city of Tiberias, which belonged to the Crusaders. The Crusaders were furious. They charged with swords and spears in hand, leading their army towards Tiberias. But Salah ad-Din wasn't worried. It was just as he had planned. His enemies had slipped right into his trap. The tactical leader knew that the land between the army and the opposition was a desert. And just as he had predicted, the enemies were unprepared for the climate they found there. The Crusaders grew thirsty and quickly tired under the glare of the sun. Salah ad-Din took his chance and surged towards them with the full force of his military might. Once he had defeated them, victory was at hand. The commander made his march towards Jerusalem and besieged it until it had surrendered. But word traveled fast and trouble came after him when more Crusaders from Europe made their way to attack and revenge. Salah ad-Din, the hero of 100 battles, began to face his first losses. But even though his empire was under attack and the general held tight to Jerusalem and refused to give it up, he held tight to Palestine. Richard the Lionheart, the King of England himself, joined the fray and tried to take the Holy Land away from Salah ad-Din. In the end, a truce was made between them. Salah ad-Din kept the keys of Jerusalem and stayed in control of the city. He let the Christian pilgrims pass through it without coming to any harm, and before the English king left, he recognized Salah ad-Din's military skill, his courage and his goodness, and declared him the greatest of Mohammedan princes to ever reign the Muslim world. Okay, so that's the story of Salah ad-Din. And I did want to leave time for a few questions, if anybody had any. So we've got 10 minutes for any questions. Okay, we've got a few. Oh, you can take the mic, yeah.
I have a question. Who is your favorite author and why?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. I've had a lot of favorite authors, but right now, okay, I'm going to be really cheeky and say that right now, my favorite author is actually in this room. It's not me, oh God. It's actually my sister, because my sister has actually wrote a book called Not Now Noor, and she's actually got another one coming out next year, and it's called The Misadventures of Mina Mahmood. And I've had a sneaky peek at it, and it looks amazing. She's currently carrying my daughter, just pretending not to be awkward. But right now, I think my favorite author, I have to be a little bit biased. I think my favorite author is her, and she's just pretending that I'm not saying anything because it's so awkward. But she's writing this book about children in year 6, and they're going to a residential, and there's a lot of danger. If you like Little Bad Man and Diary of a Wimpy Kid together, it's a cross between all of those, and it's Muslim characters as well. So right now, that's my favorite book and my favorite author. That's a really good question. I'm glad you asked. So is she. Yeah.
How many books have you made?
Well, that is an interesting question. I've made quite a few. So I've written 4. Oh, sorry, 5. under my name, but I've written a few of the Prophet ﷺ and the Prophet's stories in Quran with good words, which I don't think many people know about. If you've got bedtime stories, Quran bedtime stories, I've written that as well. So I've written quite a few, I just lost track. But it's not the number, it's how many stories stay with you. Okay.
What was your first and last book, and which one is your favourite?
Okay, my first book, if we're going to go with what I've written, my first book was this one. My last book I don't have with me, but I guess it's this one I think would be one of my favourites, because this one is about Yusuf. He's going to become an uncle, and it's just basically, he's a little Hafid, he's in training, his sister's about to have a baby, and he decides to be the best uncle he can be. He has to, on a Friday, escape from school and go to Jummah. And I think that's quite nice. So that's my favourite one right now. Quite a few questions.
What was the most challenging thing that you had to do to make the book? What was the most challenging thing that you had to do?
That's a really interesting question. I think it would be meeting deadlines. When you're, because I'm a teacher as well, when you've got like lots to do, you have like a lot of deadlines to meet. So my deadline, imagine my deadline was the 1st of January and I didn't meet it. I was like, give me another week. You give me another week. And it's like the 7th of January and I was like, okay, give me another 3 months. And I delayed my deadline by like 6 months, but I ended up writing the book in 4 weeks. So it's deadlines. I'm very struggle with deadlines. Everyone struggles with them. Lovely.
Are you the person who made the lives of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
I've got a book about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's just a little book by good words. I don't think I've written his life story, no. I wasn't alive back then, but I've written a few parts for children. I think there's somebody at the back, and I feel like we're going to miss him.
Who's inspired you most to write books?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. Who has inspired me most to write a book? Oh, I don't know. This, believe it or not, was inspired by my students. So you know what I used to say to my students? I used to say, do you know what? Don't ever have an argument in front of me, because what you say might end up in a book. And in one of the books, I taught at a school in Rochdale, about 15 minutes away, and there's a conversation between 2 year 3 students. One of the year 3 students brought something into school. He brought in like Hulk smash hands, and he was like, Miss, can I show everyone them? And I was like, yeah, of course you can. We're all so excited. So he brought it to the front, and then he told everyone about them. We were like, okay, can we have a look at them? And he was like, no. I came for you to look at them in my hands. You're not allowed to touch them. And I was like, oh. Well, that's in book 1 of Mayhem Mission. These books, I've got a close family member of mine who I would say it's like his childhood, some of these. This one definitely, I feel like I borrow his ideas. I have been told I'm a comedy genius, which I think is absolutely hilarious, but I don't think I can take the credit. So I have a few family members that inspire me. That's a really good question. I think the mic is coming around. I think there's a few more questions. Oh,
If you wasn't an author, what would you be?
I think I would still be a teacher, because I'm a teacher first and foremost. But that's a good question. I think I would like to work at a library. That would be great, because I would just sit and read books all day and get paid for it. Not a bad life.
How to be a successful writer?
It depends on what you think success is. To me, success is when even one person reads my book. So somebody read Mayhem Mission, and they told me it was like I had taken a photograph of their life. And it was like, they said, I look at Yusuf, and I see my family in there. And to me, that was success. Because when I was your age, there was nothing out there for people like me. I never really read a book with Muslim characters in them, or Bengali characters. And if I did read books about Muslim characters, they weren't very good Muslim characters. So if somebody says to me, I love that book. I once went abroad and somebody said, you've inspired me. And just from his stories alone, I was like, you know what? that is success. It's not always about the money. And you know, inshallah, it weighs heavily on the scale of good deeds on the day I need it most.
Have you drawn the front cover and the pictures?
The pictures, so somebody else drew the pictures. What happens is the publisher, they pick people. I don't get control, but they chose some really beautiful illustrators to illustrate my book. I'm so blessed, alhamdulillah. Yeah.
What was your inspiration to write funny stories?
This one was probably because I have a class of year 11s, and one of the year 11s in that class was an English boy, and he said to my class of Bengali students, "Miss, why are all Muslims, why are all terrorists Muslims?" And the whole class, because we're Muslim, just wanted to fight him, and I was like, "Guys, don't fight him." But by the end of the year, he even did a presentation about how the media makes Muslims look bad. So that was, but one of my students had said to me, wouldn't it be great if we had something where we could celebrate Muslims and people know about us? So I did this from that. So I would say my students. Some really excellent questions. Hi.
Who inspired you and why?
Who inspired me?
And why? Why they inspired you?
Okay, I think I've answered that one, but I think a few people have inspired me. So I said my family member, whose life is pretty much in this book, and my students, yeah. I think there's a young lady here.
What's your favorite thing about making a book?
My favorite thing about making a book is probably reading it at the end when I've done all the hard work, and I was just like, these are my ideas. I would like to say they're mine. It's my family. I'll be honest, the books that I write are just taken from excerpts of my life. That's why anyone can become a writer, because here, it's just parts of my life and my family's life, and I just put them in a book. It fell out of my head. Literally, I don't feel like I wrote this book. I felt like Yusuf fell out of my head and wrote this book. So anyone can do that, can't they? You could do that, couldn't you? Inshallah.
What is your favorite kind of genre for a book?
That's really interesting. My favorite genre, it's really hard. I think right now my favorite genre is the genre I'm writing, funny middle grade.
My auntie's a librarian, and also, if someone had to write a book and they saw you, how would you feel? And if they asked you some questions?
I think I would tell them, I would feel really excited that they wanted to write a book, and I would tell them to continue reading and continue writing, because the more you read, the better writer you become. Yeah? Okay. I think there's one more question. I'm surprised. That's fine.
Why do you like writing a book?
Why do I like it? It's because, I don't know, I just feel like, when I was growing up, I didn't have this, and I'm the kind of person that if I see something that is missing, I'll do it.
Have you ever got bored while writing a book?
Have I got bored writing a book? Yeah, definitely. Then I've realized I need to make my ideas a little bit better. Because if I'm bored, you're going to be even more bored, aren't you?
Let's say if you want to write a book, but you don't have an inspiration. How do you do it?
That's an excellent question. That's a really excellent question. I talk to my family members, and I just swap ideas with them. That's a really good way to do it. Just swap ideas with my family members.
When you were younger, did you want to be an author?
No, actually, I didn't realize that people like me could become authors. I was just going to read for the rest of my life. I only started becoming an author when I was about 25, and I entered a competition because I didn't want to mark some books. And then instead of marking books, I wrote a story, and then it went from there.
What kind of books did you read when you were younger?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked me that question, because there's a book called Little Chicken, And it's the one where the sky is falling, and my favorite characters were Chicken Lickin', Henny Penny, Cocky Lucky, Ducky Lucky, Drakey Lakey, Goosey Lucy, Foxy Luxy, and Turkey Lurkey. So that would have been my favorite book. But nobody really asked me about that, so I was like, I'll have to get that in there. Gotta give credit where it's due.
Why do you think it's important to write books with characters like Yusuf?
That's a really good question. I feel like, in our communities, Muslims, especially young Muslim boys, I can see a few young Muslim boys. Put your hand up for a young Muslim boy. Few here. I feel like the girls, we get a really good rep for being very studious. And the girls, we tend to, in school, people think we're going to be hard workers, but they forget about the boys. So I always think when we have characters who are boys, who are Muslim, and who have got really good representation, Yusuf, he's got good intentions. He's a troublemaker, but he wants to be a Hafiz. He does 5 daily prayers. At the end of every book, apart from this one, simply because I was having a baby and I forgot, but he makes a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he always has the best intentions. It just goes wrong in every single possible way. And I just want our boys, our Muslim youth, the spearheads of our ummah, to have the realization that we can be like that. And there's nothing wrong with that, despite what people say.
I think this will be the last question.
If you had if you were a kid and you had no book, what would you do?
If you were a kid and if you had no book, what would we do?
I would give them a book. I'd go to the library and get a book, okay? Because they're free. Anyway, I think that is the last of the questions. I think we've run out of time, but Jazakallah khairan for having me. It's been wonderful with your questions. Sometimes I'm like, are you there? Are you paying attention? But it turns out you are.
Jazakallah, sister. I know we have had so many questions. We are going to have so many young writers, inshallah.